So many instructional design jobs these days ask for at least 3 to 5 years of experience. So if you're new and trying to break into the field, I know how overwhelming that can feel. The good news is that you don't actually need 3 to 5 years of experience to land these jobs. So in this video, we're going to talk about how you can get hired without any formal instructional design experience. All right, so again, we're diving into this video because so many of these instructional design jobs require experience. And if you're new, it's really hard to get experience if you don't have experience. At least that's what a lot of people think. Hopefully by the end of this video, you will feel much more confident applying to and landing those 5-year experience required jobs because it's definitely possible. I've helped a decent number of people break into the field with absolutely no formal ID experience. And that's what all of the content on this channel is devoted to these days. So I'll link to relevant videos throughout this video. And if you're new here, just explore the channel because there's a lot of content that should help you get that first instructional design job. So let's dive into it. So here's a brief outline of what we will cover. We're going to talk about how you can reframe your existing experience, create a strong portfolio, include some short-term projects, and network and apply to jobs. So let's dive into it. So the first order of business here is to reframe the experience that you do have. Because while you might not have 3 to 5 years of instructional design experience, I think there's a very good chance that you have some very similar experience. And the reason for that is because so many jobs have some overlap with instructional design jobs, right? If you're doing anything in the education space or the design space, or even honestly, even in like the sales space, because communication plays such a big role and analysis plays a big role. So I'm confident that whatever field you are coming from, you can probably pick out some tasks that you performed in that role and position them as instructional design tasks. So that's probably what you'll want to do with your resume first and your LinkedIn second. This is one of those points. I have a video about how to create your resume and a video about how to build out your LinkedIn profile. So check those out if you haven't already. But we want to make sure that you're using this instructional design language and lingo to talk about your past experiences. Let me give you some examples here. So if you've created Google Slides decks in your role as like a teacher or a presenter or trainer or whatever it is, you can position that as designing and developing e-learning. Or if you've talked to your students to identify some knowledge or skill gaps, you can talk about how you can mention that you conducted needs assessments to identify training needs. These are just two quick examples, right? But I'm just showing you side by side this one insignificant thing that you might have been doing every week in your previous role. You can position that as something that instructional designers do every single day. So really think about that. Go through my videos, look at these guides I've written, look at the language I'm using to talk about instructional design tasks, and then think if any work that you've done in the past qualifies as that, or if you can use that language to talk about things you've actually done and it still be true, right? Now, obviously, you don't want to be deceptive, right? If you're saying you design and develop, you don't want to say you design and develop e-learning in Storyline, right? Or you don't want to use that experience to say, oh yeah, I can hit the ground running with Storyline tomorrow if you've never used the tool. But using this kind of language will definitely make you stand out from people who are still using like teacher language or, language from different fields that doesn't really give you that instructional designer credibility. Okay, so that brings us to this question of whether or not you need a degree, right? Because a lot of people, they're tempted to get degrees or certificates. They think, for me to get a job in this field, I need to get some kind of credibility from an accredited university. And this kind of formal education definitely can help you talk the talk, right? It can help you use that language better. It can help you feel more confident because you have this program to back you up. And those are valid reasons, right? Like I did a master's degree and it did help me. But these degrees or certificates are not necessary to land a job in the corporate world, right? So I can do a whole video about the pros and cons of formal education in the instructional design space. Let me know in the comments if that's something you want to see. But we just conducted a hiring manager survey, and you should check out that video. I'll link to it in the top right in the description. But formal education did not seem to play a very big role in these hiring managers' decisions. And bachelor's degrees, like across the board, were sufficient and preferred for these roles with a corporate heavy audience. So yeah, probably not 100% necessary, but it can help you. So, okay, one of the very best things you can do to land a job without experience is to create a portfolio. I say this is hands down like the best thing you can do, just because it shows off the skills you have. And that's what so many employers are looking for right now. They want someone who has the skills and can immediately hit the ground running with their team. That's one of the things. They also want someone who can communicate well and probably who has a little bit of experience, but experience not required when you have a really strong skill set. So this point right here, companies will hire you for your skills, not your experience. That's the big thing that I hope you take away from this video. Instead of just throwing out that spending hours every day applying to positions, like instead of doing that, spend that time building your skill set and building out a portfolio that shows off your skills, because that is valuable and that will help you land work, that even if it's asking for 3 to 5 years of experience. So we'll keep going here. This is the point I wanted to make immediately after this, so I'm glad I did this. You don't have to settle for entry level. So I hear about people just spending hours every day applying for these entry level positions and internships and doing these volunteer experiences. But if you devoted all of that energy to really building out your skill set and putting together a strong portfolio, you can kind of skip the entry level and make a job, grab a job making 20, 30, 40, 50K more out the gate if you just use that time wisely. So we're going to get into those volunteer experiences and short-term projects, but just think about the opportunity cost of how you're spending your time, because if you have that strong skill set, you can demand very nice rates for that skill set, even if you don't have formal instructional design experience on the resume. Just in case you're doubting this, this was my experience. When I was a master's student, I had my portfolio up. I was applying to full-time jobs and I was landing interviews at companies that asked for 5 years of experience. I wound up not pursuing those further because I was able to freelance full-time. But yeah, all of the people I help with no formal ID experience, they're getting jobs at Amazon. They're getting jobs, they're using my content to break out and get jobs at these big tech companies. So yeah, this has been proven to me time and time again. The skills are what will open the doors for you. Experience is nice and it will only help, but think about the opportunity cost when you're trying to get these really entry-level roles. And that time might be better spent working on your portfolio. I think I drilled that point home enough, so let's move on. So let's talk about the different short-term projects you can do to kind of get your foot in the door. So volunteering or completing internships, these are both very common paths to kind of get exposed to the ID working world without taking on a full-time role. So again, a common way to get your foot in the door, to collaborate with other instructional designers and work on real projects. I think there is obviously value in that. It can help you talk the talk better. It can help you walk the walk because you're working on real projects. It can help you build your network, see what these environments are actually like. So obviously there are benefits to this. I would just suggest that you ensure the scope is very clear, because you don't want to be bogged down 40 hours a week volunteering or interning if your main goal is to land a really nice corporate ID role. And the reason for that is just what I already talked about, right? Like, you don't want this to come at the cost of building out these hard skills and building out your portfolio. But these are nice, resume items to have. Just don't make it your main goal to land these two things, if that makes sense, because there are more effective ways to land a nice full-time job. Okay, and freelancing. So this, I experienced this. This helped me get a lot of interest when I thought I would have to work a full-time job. And I've heard people reach out to me and say that this has helped them a lot when they were trying to land that first full-time job. They took on small freelance projects as they were, going along their journey as they were learning the tools. So this is a great resume item to say that you are a freelancer. You're designing and developing e-learning for multiple clients. You're doing instructional design work for them. This obviously makes you a bit more credible than if you just learned the skills on your own and never got paid to use them. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like a lot of companies really want to hire someone who's new to the field because they can kind of shape them and help them work with their team. The downside is they do expect you to have the skills coming in. So that is the one caveat there. And the same thing, ensure that scope or the time commitment is fixed and clear, unless you want to be a full-time freelancer, because you don't want to take away from the main goal, which would be to land that full-time role. Be realistic with your timeline there. If you want a full-time job in 6 months, probably don't take on a 6-month freelance contract. We're going to be busy with that 40 hours a week. But if you're taking on small projects just to build up your experience, maybe work with more established freelancers to see what it's like to work on real projects, that can help a ton when you're trying to break into the field. It's a low commitment way to get some real hands-on experience, and you're also getting paid for your time. So great one there. There is one more thing I wanted to say about this, the volunteer or intern experience. If you're having a hard time landing any like formal volunteer or internship work, like just think about it. What is a knowledge or skill gap you've identified in the instructional design community or the communities you serve? What's something you've seen your friends or family struggle with? Because if you can design a learning solution for that and then just put it up on your portfolio website and talk about that need and how you helped solve it, that can look really good to potential employers. And then you can also share that with your audience, with the people who need it, maybe on social media. And it is a form of volunteer work, right? Like that knowledge, putting that out there can really help people. So you don't have to be tied to a specific organization to do that type of work. Just wanted to throw that out there. And that's a good way to build up your portfolio, is to build projects that can actually help people. Okay, we are on to networking. So networking, right? Spending your time on LinkedIn, spending your time on the community, talking to people who are experienced. It's a great way to learn the lingo and build your credibility. The more your name gets out there, the more people hear your voice and see what you're typing. It just makes you more familiar. It makes people trust you more. It makes us not think, oh, you're just someone who's going to disappear. So that can be a good way to get the attention of hiring managers or recruiters. Or, if an opportunity comes up and someone knows you and thinks you may be a good fit for it, that referral can bring your application to the top of the pile. So again, I haven't been bringing up these videos, but I have a video about LinkedIn and about how to network as an ID. So check that out if you are new to this piece. And a big video I want you to take away from this one is this portfolio video, right? Like I have a whole video about how to create your portfolio. So if you haven't been focusing on this, I would definitely suggest checking that video out and prioritizing creating that strong portfolio. All right, this is the last step, and I want this to be another big takeaway. Please apply to these jobs. Once you have the portfolio together and you feel good about your resume, apply to these jobs. I don't care if they're asking for 10 years of experience, and I don't care if you match 30% of the requirements. Like, if you don't apply, you're definitely not going to get the job. I know that the application process can be grueling. I know it may feel like a waste of time if it says, oh yeah, required 5 years of experience. But I promise you, in most of those cases, maybe 9 out of 10, if you have a good portfolio and you know what you're talking about, from watching videos like this, talking to people in the community, and just learning on your own, you have a very, very good chance at landing those jobs. That 5 years is not a super hard requirement. It's just like a potential weed out mechanism for, does this person know their stuff? But as we've been discussing, there are other ways to show that you can do the job without having done it for 5 years. And hiring managers recognize that. So yeah, so that's the main point. Apply for those stretch jobs once you have a good portfolio. That will open doors for you that you really may not expect. And I'll be here to help how I can. Please, drop a comment if I missed anything or if you have any questions about what we discussed. Like the video if it helped. I also want to mention I have a whole playlist about how to become an instructional designer. This is just one piece, and we talk about all of these things like extensively. So I'll link that also in the top right and beneath the video. And I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.